Hi, everyone. My name is Marie Eve, and welcome to the 31st episode of the Daily Attorney Podcast, where we talk to women attorneys all over the United States who are simply amazing at what they do inside and outside of the legal profession. I am so excited about our guest today. She was actually supposed to be on in May, but because she was sailing the seas and the coasts and the mountains of Canada, she was not able to make it. Our guest today is Miss Joleena Pickett Louis. She is the owner of Joleena Louis Law. Originally established in 2019, the firm focuses on divorce and family law. Family law is her passion, and she has been exclusively practicing it since graduating from Hofstra University School of Law in 2010. In addition to assisting New Yorkers with their family law issue, she also loves to blog about law firm marketing on modernsolo.com and even has a weekly column on the Law Firm Suites blog called Things I Wish I Knew. And speaking of which, things that I wish I knew, we would love to hear about some of the things that you wish that you knew as, a modern solo, as a practicing attorney, and as a business owner. But first and foremost, Joleena, thank you so much for being here today. And I am broadcasting from a site where I'm actually volunteering right now. So if you see the background is a little weird, it's because I'm in a children's playroom. But nevertheless, we got to do what we have to do. And I did not want to cancel because, you and I have waited for this since May. So thank you so much for being here today. It means a lot.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm glad we finally got to do this.
Yes, ma'am. So talk to us a little bit about what it's like, right? I have so many questions, but the first one that I really want to dive into is, what is it like being a New York City family attorney?
It's a very interesting and fast-paced job. I'm originally from Ohio. I'm a Midwest girl, and I moved to New York to go to law school. Loved it here, didn't want to leave, so that's why I started my practice in New York. Um, it's definitely a big city, but the legal field is very small, so you kind of get to know everybody. I get to know all the lawyers and the different judges and the different counties. It can be very chaotic sometimes. New York City itself has the five boroughs, five different counties, five different,
Yep.
ways of rules and ways of practicing everything. So it certainly can be, complicated if you're not used to practicing in this field.
Yeah, one of the things that we talked about backstage is just the differences, right, between the two states. And I know all states are different, but I think the population, the level of population in New York, kind of lends itself to a little bit of disorganization. So, how do you keep yourself essentially organized, right, in a court system that may not be so organized?
I'm basically just staying on top of everything. Like I know what I need to do in each of the separate counties. I'm a huge fan of having like checklists and procedures in my law practice. So, if I have a case in Kings County, this is what I need to do to file a motion. The rules might be different in Queens County. So I have a separate checklist for that. So we can keep on top of what we need to do, the different rules for the different judges and the different procedures for the different counties.
Yeah. Do you ever find yourself, a bit overwhelmed having to remember all that? Or does your checklist, essentially, I don't want to say tempers, but gets rid of all the anxiety surrounding that level of disorganization?
I do think that the checklists help and the organization helps. And one of the things that you find about New York and New Yorkers is that people are very blunt, but they're actually very helpful and friendly, right? So if I'm going to a new place, if I'm going before a new judge or a new situation, all you have to do is ask, and people will tell you what to do. The clerks will be very helpful. So I never feel like I'm in a situation where I'm completely overwhelmed. You can always, determine the process and add that to your checklist so you know what to do next time.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that I love and miss. Thankfully, we have that cohesive environment here in our court system in Maryland. But I'm originally from New York City, Brooklyn. My family still lives there. So I have some idea as to, what their system looks like. But I want to take you back to how did you go from Ohio to New York? Because those are two very, very different states.
Yes, they are very, very different. And just living in New York from Ohio, like when I moved here, the cost of living, like when I lived in Ohio, in college, I paid maybe like $500 a month for like a huge one bedroom apartment. You move to New York, the
Mhm.
prices tripled for like a tiny studio. So I mean, it's definitely a lot different. But what brought me to New York was law school. I applied
Mhm.
to many different schools. I ultimately went with Hofstra because they offered me a scholarship.
Sweet.
So yeah, so that was like, well, if I go to the school, less student loans, definitely more
Yep.
appealing. So that made my
Yep.
choice. And once I came and visited and I moved here, I absolutely fell in love with New York. Like I don't see myself living anywhere else.
And I can understand that. Really? Nowhere else?
Nowhere
Not
else. I'll visit
Cali?
other places. I love New York.
Wow. Oh my goodness. I hope my mom is hearing that. She usually watches the show. She loves it. Every time I tell her, I'm like, Mom, you sure you don't want to move to Maryland? Mm-mm. No, no, thank you. I'm like, oh, okay, fine. Whereas my dad is complete opposite. My dad comes here, he loves it, he hangs out, he has a good time, and he is not at all impressed with New York when he leaves. I'm like, Dad, you've lived there for like 30 years. You can't talk trash about New York now. So my family is just on a very different spectrum when it comes to you, but I can understand it. New York City has the people, it has the culture, it has opportunity, it has cohesion. I think like no other state that I've ever been to, other than maybe California, which is where I'm going to retire. But New York just definitely has that special thing that keeps people coming back for more. But let me ask you this: when you leave Ohio, you open up a very different world, right? In law school at Hofstra, which you and I talked about. I actually almost went to Hofstra, but decided on University of Baltimore instead. Um, so you graduate from law school, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, I'm just going to open up my law firm in this big, scary city. How did you get from graduation to law firm? And definitely number two, what would you say was one of the things that you wish you knew when you opened your law firm?
So initially, when I graduated from law school, I started working for a small like boutique matrimonial firm in Brooklyn. Um, and it was I definitely gained a lot of experience. I didn't have a lot of guidance. I wasn't making a lot of money, and I was pretty much running the matrimonial practice by myself. And I was like, if I'm going to be poor, I can be poor working for myself.
Wow.
So that's what led me to start my practice. Very early on in my career. And I think that just anyone else that was thinking about it, my biggest piece of advice and what I would wish I would have known from the beginning is there's not a perfect time. Like everything is not going to line up. You're not going to have the
Yeah.
right amount of money. It's not going to be the right situation. You just got to put yourself out there because nothing's going to be perfect. And the
Mhm.
only way that you're going to move forward is just to do it.
Yeah. And that is true. But, being law students, we're not taught that. We're taught this is how to analyze a case, this is how to win a case, this is what to do, this is how to do it. It's not anything other than that. So you open up your own practice now. What is it that you're learning, right? Who are your mentors? Like, what is your guidance? Do you reach back to your old firm and say, hey, how do I do this? How do I do that? Like, how did you navigate that? Because oh, okay. Sorry, we had some internet issues.
And you're breaking up just a little bit.
Did you hear what anything I said?
So how did I navigate figuring out what to do basically when starting my practice, right?
Mhm.
So I mean, I didn't reach back out to my old firm. When I was at my old firm and I didn't know what to do, I reached out to my best friend who was working with some people who knew what they were doing. One of the attorneys in the office that she worked for was very helpful, and she turns out to be now, one of my really good friends. She's in the the babes group as well, and just talking to other attorneys basically. There's a lot of solo attorneys, small firm attorneys. Like we're all like figuring it out together, and just asking people. Like you really have to learn how to just not be afraid to put yourself out there and ask questions. So I now from the time I opened my practice up to now, I have a just a group of people that I feel comfortable, and we're all in the same practice area and everything. Just reaching out to them and asking them questions, and everybody helps each other, answers each other's questions as best as we can, and
Mhm.
figures things out together. So I think building a network of other solos and small firm owners is really extremely helpful. Yep, I don't know if I lost you.